pressure to please and satisfy society, where the authentic self becomes the servant and external validation becomes the master. There's a moment that happens in the quiet space between thoughts, when you catch yourself mid-performance and wonder who you're really performing for. Maybe it's while you're choosing your words carefully in a meeting, or smiling just a little too wide at a party, or staring at your phone screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard, asking yourself what version of the truth will get the most hearts. In that moment, something inside you whispers a question that cuts deeper than any blade. When did I become a stranger to myself? We live in an age where we've become master artists of our own surfaces, painting beautiful portraits of our lives while our souls bear invisible scars. We've learned to speak the language of approval so fluently that we've forgotten the dialect of our own hearts. It's a peculiar kind of prison, one made of gold and praise, where the bars are made of other people's expectations and the lock is forged from our own need to be loved. We're going to explore this delicate territory together. We'll walk in the footsteps of Carl Jung, who saw how we craft elaborate masks to hide our true faces, and Søren Kierkegaard, who understood the quiet anguish of living someone else's story. We'll discover why the very approval we chase might be the thing that's slowly erasing who we were meant to be. So settle in, breathe deeply, and let's begin. To understand why we sacrifice ourselves for others' approval, we need to look at how this invisible cage was built around us. Think about our ancestors sitting around a fire thousands of years ago. Back then, being rejected by your tribe didn't just hurt your feelings. It could mean death. Your brain learned that belonging equals survival. This ancient wiring still lives inside us today, which is why getting unfriended on social media can feel like a physical wound. The French sociologist Émile Durkheim saw this clearly over a century ago. He realized that humans are held together by what he called collective consciousness, a shared set of beliefs and values that bind us like invisible threads. But here's where it gets interesting. Durkheim noticed that when these social bonds become too tight, they can strangle individual freedom. We become so focused on fitting in that we forget who we are underneath. Fast forward to today, and we've built something Durkheim could never have imagined. We carry devices that constantly measure our social worth. The media theorist Marshall McLuhan warned us about this when he said the medium is the message. He meant that how we communicate changes what we communicate. When every thought becomes a post and every moment becomes content, we start living for the reaction instead of the experience. Consider a teacher who spends her evenings crafting the perfect Instagram story about her classroom. She's not sharing to connect or inspire. She's performing for validation. Her brain releases dopamine each time someone reacts, creating an addiction to approval that slowly replaces her natural joy in teaching. The architecture of social pressure has turned her passion into performance, her authentic self into a brand. This is how the cage builds itself, one perfectly curated moment at a time. Carl Jung, the great Swiss psychologist, gave us a powerful word for what we're doing when we prioritize how we appear over who we are, the persona. Jung borrowed this term from ancient Greek theater, where actors wore masks to play different characters. He realized that we all wear invisible masks in our daily lives. The helpful coworker, the perfect parent, the successful friend. But Jung warned us about something crucial. When we wear these masks too long, we can forget there's a real face underneath. Think about the last time you were in a job interview. You probably sat up straighter, spoke more formally, and highlighted only your best qualities. This isn't necessarily wrong. It's part of how society functions. But what happens when this performance never ends? When every conversation becomes an audition, every moment becomes a chance to prove your worth. The Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard understood this exhaustion deeply. He wrote about people who live their entire lives in what he called the aesthetic stage, always focused on how things look rather than what they mean. Here's where it gets tragic. The more energy we pour into maintaining our masks, the less we have left for actual growth. Consider a young professional who spends hours each day crafting the perfect LinkedIn posts about his career wins. He's so busy managing his image as a successful person that he never stops to ask if he's actually happy. His mask has become so heavy that it's crushing the very person it was meant to protect. This is what Jung called the shadow. All the parts of ourselves we hide away because they don't fit the performance. But the shadow doesn't disappear when we ignore it. It grows stronger in the darkness, creating an inner split that leaves us feeling hollow even when everyone applauds. When we spend all our energy maintaining the perfect image, something precious begins to wither inside us. Carl Jung, the father of humanistic psychology, in his work with clients, he noticed that people often developed what he called a false self, a version of themselves designed to win love and acceptance. But Rogers discovered something heartbreaking. The more successful this false self became, the more disconnected people felt from their own lives. They had traded their authentic nature for approval, and the bargain left them feeling empty even when everyone else thought they were thriving. This emptiness isn't just sadness, it's what happens when we stop listening to our inner voice. Søren Kierkegaard called this the sickness unto death, a kind of spiritual despair that comes from living someone else's life instead of your own. When we're constantly focused outward, asking, what do they want me to be, we lose touch with the deeper questions. What do I actually feel? What do I truly need? What wounds am I carrying that need attention? These unprocessed experiences don't just disappear, they accumulate like sediment in our souls, creating what we might call invisible scars. The contemplative monk, Thomas Merton, understood this cost deeply. He wrote about how we can become so skilled at performing holiness, success, or happiness that we forget what these things actually feel like from the inside. We become masters of the external while remaining strangers to ourselves. Think of it this way. Every moment we spend crafting our image is a moment we're not spending healing our hearts. Every energy we pour into managing others' opinions is energy we're not investing in understanding our own depths. We become like houses with beautiful facades but crumbling foundations, impressive from the street, but unstable where it matters most. Here's the cruel irony of our age. We can be surrounded by people who like us and still feel completely alone. When we focus all our energy on being likable, we create what the philosopher Martin Buber called I-it relationships. Connections where we treat others as objects to impress rather than souls to know. Buber contrasted this with our relationships, where we meet each other as whole beings, imperfections and all. But here's the problem. When we're wearing masks, we can only form shallow connections. People might love our performance, but they don't know the real us. And somewhere deep down, we know this. The researcher Brené Brown discovered something profound in her work on vulnerability. The very things we hide to stay likable are often the things that would create genuine connection if we shared them. Our struggles, our doubts, our messy humanity. These aren't flaws to hide but bridges to build. When we only show our highlight reel, we rob others of the chance to love us completely. We also rob ourselves of the relief that comes from being truly seen and accepted. Aristotle wrote about 3 types of friendship: those based on pleasure, those based on usefulness, and those based on virtue and genuine character. When we're constantly performing, we can only access the first 2 types. We become friends with people who enjoy our company or find us useful, but we never reach that deeper level where someone values us for who we truly are. This is why you can have hundreds of social media friends and still feel like nobody really knows you. The applause feels hollow because you know it's for a character you're playing, not for the person you actually are. In trying to connect with everyone, we end up connecting with no one, least of all ourselves. So how do we break free from this golden cage of approval? The answer isn't to become a hermit or to stop caring about others entirely. Instead, we need what the ancient Greeks called the golden mean, a balanced path between extremes. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, writing in his private journal, showed us this middle way. He understood that we must engage with society while maintaining what he called inner sovereignty, the ability to remain true to ourselves regardless of external pressures. Aurelius practiced this by starting each day with quiet reflection, asking not what will others think, but what kind of person do I want to be today? This inner work requires what the mystic poet Rumi called turning inward. In a world that constantly pulls our attention outward, we must deliberately create space for solitude and self-reflection. This isn't selfish, it's necessary. Just as a well needs time to refill before it can nourish others, we need time alone to reconnect with our authentic selves. Simple practices like morning journaling, evening reflection, or just sitting quietly without distractions can slowly rebuild our relationship with our inner voice. Perhaps most importantly, we must learn to tolerate the discomfort of disappointing others. Viktor Frankl, who survived the Nazi concentration camps, discovered that our deepest freedom comes not from avoiding suffering but from choosing our response to it. When someone disapproves of our authentic self, we have a choice. We can betray ourselves to win their approval, or we can stay true to who we are and accept their disappointment. This second path is harder, but it's the only one that leads to real freedom. Each time we choose authenticity over approval, we strengthen our inner foundation. We become like trees that grow deeper roots, more stable in storms, more nourished from within. When we stop performing and start healing, something beautiful happens. We begin to serve others from a place of wholeness rather than emptiness. Mahatma Gandhi understood this deeply when he said, "We must be the change we wish to see in the world." He wasn't talking about putting on a show of goodness. He was talking about doing the inner work that naturally flows outward as compassion and wisdom. A person who has faced their own shadows can sit with others in their darkness without judgment. Someone who has learned to love their own imperfections can offer genuine acceptance to others. Carl Jung called this process individuation, becoming who we truly are, not who we think we should be. But Jung realized something profound. When we become fully ourselves, we paradoxically become more connected to others. It's like musicians in an orchestra. Each instrument must first know its own sound before it can contribute to the symphony. When we're authentic, we give others permission to be authentic too. We create what the Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh called interbeing, the recognition that our individual healing and collective healing are not separate things but parts of the same whole. Picture a candle that lights other candles. It doesn't diminish its own flame by sharing it. Instead, the whole room becomes brighter. This is what happens when we live from our authentic center. We stop trying to be what others want and start being what the world actually needs: present, genuine, and whole. The teacher who stops performing perfect lessons and starts sharing real wisdom. The parent who stops pretending to have all the answers and starts modeling honest growth. The friend who stops saying what people want to hear and starts offering what they truly need. This is the gift of integration, not the polished performance of who we think we should be, but the humble offering of who we actually are. We began with a simple example: how we get lost trying to have a different version of ourselves. We've traveled together through the architecture of social pressure, explored the masks we wear, and witnessed the cost of neglecting our inner lives. We've seen how the very approval we seek can become a prison, and how the courage to disappoint others might actually be the key to deeper connection. But here's what I hope you'll remember. You are not broken for feeling this way. The pressure to perform, to please, to be perpetually perfect, this isn't a personal failing. It's a human condition that has touched every thoughtful person who has ever lived. The difference is in how we respond to this pressure. Do we surrender our souls to the endless hunger for approval, or do we learn the gentle art of being authentically human? The real masterpiece isn't the perfect image we present to the world. It's the quiet work of healing, the daily practice of choosing truth over performance, the courage to let our authentic selves shine through the cracks of our carefully constructed facades. When we stop trying to be what everyone else wants and start becoming who we truly are, we don't just heal ourselves. We heal the world around us. We give others permission to remove their masks too. So, ask yourself this. What would change if you measured your worth not by how many people approve of you, but by how honestly you're living? What would happen if you spent as much energy healing your soul as you do crafting your image? The answers to these questions won't come all at once, but they will come. And when they do, you'll discover that the art of being human isn't about perfection. It's about the beautiful courage to be real. Thank you for taking this reflective journey with me tonight. If something here resonated with your own experience, I'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Sometimes the most profound insights emerge not from the video itself, but from the conversations it sparks between us. Until we meet again in another exploration of the human heart.